I dropped to put my clavicle in here, and then I stepped over to attack the top side arm, right? So people that weren't here, we'll just recap it, and then we'll add to what I did on Saturday so that we press the action on both sides, okay? It's pretty simple. Just a really quick, we'll warm up with this and then add to it, okay? So on this side, two different versions of it, okay? So we're saying that the person was in side control, you were aggressively trying to hold him in this position, and what happened was that, so that we describe it correctly, is that I couldn't get control of his head, right? Because as soon as I landed in the pass, he did the right thing. He protected his skull line so that I couldn't manipulate the spinal cord and then control the rest of the body. So now I realize like he's like too strong for me, and he's pressing away on me and framing correctly so that he can bring a shin line in and then make separation and bring the secondary leg in. That's what he's trying to do mechanically, right? So what I said on the last class is if I understand that and he's making separation, I'm not going to leave this hand on this side because it has no purpose at that point. So it's going to drop to this side and look, because what I just described is he was pushing me away. So if he was pushing me away to bring this in, then the angle's turning like this, and now that elbow line is exposed. So I said, take that far side arm, drop it to the side, and cup this elbow. And then what I told you was to drop the clavicle to this hip line so that I had a pin on this side so that he can't finish off his turn and get the turtle, okay? So if I've done everything correctly and he's making this separation, I drop this hand and I cup this elbow and I shelve it, and then I drop this clavicle. So that allows me to take my legs, step them over, and go into a knee pinch and attack this arm on top. So that's where we're going to start. I'm going to ask people to do it two different versions of this. So you're going to take this hand, capture your Kimura, come out, and step it back over. But you're also going to learn how to take a person's back. So my shelf was like this. It was on an inside scoop. It shouldn't change, okay? If he can retract that elbow to his lat line, there's a high probability that he's going to finish off his turn. I also want to shelve it and lift it as much as I can. Physical strength, I don't know how much you're going to have, but person on the top should try aggressively to pull it up, because I want to make it almost like it's at a 45, because then he really can't finish off his turn on coming to turtle. So try your best to stay inside the position and shelve it high as aggressively as possible, because I want to attack this arm, or I want to be able to flip to take his back. So if I'm going to, I just described how to take this arm, right? Because if I've done everything right, the arm should have been here, because what I was describing earlier, he was framing against me. So anticipate the landing spot of this arm. It's not realistic that he'd be here and he's here, because then he was never doing what I said. You would just drive him back down and take control of his skull line. So I'm telling you mechanically what's happening, okay? So you're here and you just stepped around, and all of a sudden he realizes and he buries this thing up. Okay, so I shelve this arm as aggressive because I'm telling you right now in this equation that he played this right. He realized I'm coming around the turn, so he's realizing that I got a free arm on this side to get underneath this, so he retracts back hard. But I still owned it from the bottom, because if I told you in the beginning the storyline, you understand why I owned it on the bottom, okay? So I'm still here. So I realized, like, I didn't get underneath, right? So I'm going to stay like this, pretend I didn't go to get underneath. So I take this hand and I shelve over the top, right? Now I can spin this in multiple spots now. I own this hip line, so I could go back to this back quadrant on the bottom if he comes up too quick on me. But I'm going to say no. We're going to just hold this shelf. So I was here. I capture my shelf, and I spin around this way. So now both kneecaps, I was here, they're going to windshield, and they're going to mirror the spinal cord on the other side. So as I take this leg and windshield, you can see this leg is perfectly shelved, and it's mirroring the back of this back of the shoulder line. So I'm here. This is where I was. I dropped this. I released this. So now I can start looking for the gift wrap. Or if I don't own the gift wrap, I can take this far side leg and step it over. So when I shelve them to this side and bring them over, I'm leaving that pocket open on the other side, that when I land it, now I start hunting from the back to start getting my insertion and start getting my wrist controls. I would prefer that you not take it that way. I would prefer that you gift wrapped it. Okay, so if I played the line right and the hand was here, this wrist is going to be able to be caught. Okay, so I'm going to imagine that he doesn't bring it out. So if everything I described earlier is I'm getting into the habit of this leg, do not short this leg, because I want this leg to mirror the back of this back of the deltoid line, so that when I bring him over, that leg's ready to collect on the top and maybe catch the arm from this clavicle up here. I don't know how it's going to play out, because when I bring him back, I don't know how he's going to bottle up on me. Okay, so let's do it again. I'm here, right? I drop this hand on this side, I drop the clavicle, right? I'm coming over the turn, and on the first one, I insert, I capture, I bring this leg up, I come back, okay? On the second one, when I drop, I come over the top, and I realize he bottled up, so I shelve on the far side. He didn't let me get insertion. I said this shin should mirror that bottom. So now it just mirrored perfectly on here. So I can take this leg and throw it over at this point. So I'm here, I'm here. If I can get a gift wrap, great. If I can get a gift wrap, I can get insertions. And if not, I own this whole top of the body. So now as I step the leg over, now when we fall to the other side, I'm free to body lock. I'm free to start attacking and coming underneath. So we'll take it from those points and then hunt it on the other side, please. Let's do it. You don't have to go to that backspin. There's still an opportunity, even though he closed this pocket up, that we can open this up. If you can grab the back, because you're set up perfect to come to the back. So even if you lost it, don't rush it. I mean, what I mean by is if you lost this elbow, for whatever reason, you lost the elbow and he comes to turtle, right? You're perfectly set to spin back here. Like, he's not going to beat you on the spin. You fell asleep at the wheel if you're not in a good position once you lose it, because you have a full feel of the elbow. So if you lost the elbow, you knew it. So if you didn't spin on that back leg and come back to either hunt this back quadrant or get back there, you fell asleep at the wheel. Okay, so if you're holding the elbow and you've done everything right, you know you fully manipulated him mechanically right now. So why rush it, right? Why can't I do this? Why can't, hey, can you bring the legs? No, stay right there. Just bring them long so everybody can see, right? So you were shelving this. I'll stay up, but imagine me be on a knee pin. And I go grab this and I shelve it over the top. This is only his front deltoid, right? That's not a big muscle. That's a very weak muscle. So why can't I switch my grip and cup this guy here and rip him open? Because I'm going to use my lat muscle. So you could potentially open that up on a much bigger player that maybe you're not as big and strong as him. But you can pull this to just make a small opening here. You're not trying to take his arm and open it like this. And some people you will be, that you're just so much stronger than him. But it's my lat muscle and the core of my strength against his front deltoid. So I have a good opportunity to open him up. All I'm making is a little pocket because he bottled up, right? So if you understand, like, don't rush it. If you held a great position on that and you got a good shelf on this, when you come around, it's better because you can switch this to a gift wrap. You can switch this to a step over and drive him down, belly down. Like, you can take this a lot of different ways, okay? So I'm going to ask you to hold that position and don't rush this. Do not rush that spin down there and take his back. And I'm not nitpicking, but I've seen it happen many times where they rush it and they go, man, why'd you rush that? You had a great opportunity to open that pocket up, and they're so aggressive to spin down there, and then ends up happening is you fall back, and then you don't get your points, you don't get your proper collections on the other side, okay? I want to just point something out. You could fall back without this hook, right? Meaning this is on the other one that I just did. I'm here, right? And I told you to drop, and I told you to spin this, and guys will come in here, and they'll fall back, right? And they'll hold his position, they get to this side, and they get this hook in. That hook is the more important hook. So that's why I'd rather, because you end up falling at that point, and now you're short on this hook. That's why I threw over so aggressively, because your bottom hook's more critical than your top hook. Because in the beginning, like in a simple context, you've been taught from the very beginning, put your back to the mat, take the arm, put it over, get your back to the mat. The only way he gets those shins between us is if he gets his back to the mat. So the bottom hook is the more critical one, okay? So if you're going to do it, I'm not opposed to it. Some people will do it from a shelf. Some people will capture this gift wrap and take it from here and then fall back. And then high-level player, he's going to step over that bottom hook and pin it. And now I can't collect that bottom hook. And now I'm on this dump where I got to return him back up and I got to follow him. So that's why I prefer that you throw that hook in first, but it's not the end of the world if you don't. Just understand this, like who you're playing and what the sequences were, because you're going to fall with that gift wrap on the bottom. It's great when it's on the top because you can attack the top arm, but on the bottom, I covered it maybe about 8 months ago or something like that. If you were here, that whole sequence when the gift wrap, where you have the wrist right on the bottom and he rotates, has a bunch of steps. So I'd rather you not have to go through those steps, okay? So we're gonna do this, okay? And I'm gonna ask you to have one more rotation, okay? So we're gonna do the same grip, right? But not do the top spin on that. We're gonna capture it like this, capture it again, and then open up this pocket aggressively, okay? So when you pick this leg up, there's a reason I'm picking this leg up, because I gotta open this up to start using, because if you stay here and you stay in a knee pinch and you're collapsed, you're gonna have limited rotation on your spinal cord line, so there's not gonna be a lot of oomph on this pull. You're gonna have to bring this leg up and use that back thruster of your hamstrings, your glutes, your quads to open this up. But it leaves you vulnerable that you explode this out, and now he comes to turtle. So we're gonna deal with this. I don't know if we're gonna deal with it today, but I will deal with it because that will happen. And now he's gonna come to turtle and you gotta bring him over a different way. But what I'd love for you to do is that you came in here, now we just said before, we were gonna flip this grip, open this pocket up with the top hand, come in here. But when you do these things, you're in this like fight, and now he's got this thing, and I can't really get a good grip down here. And now I start pulling this thing, and I'm like, man, I don't really have a good shelf down there. And the moment I pull this, he realizes, and now he comes to turtle because I'm starting to lose that grip. So I need you to get comfortable with spinning off this back kneecap. I'm not going to tell you at this point. You're going to have two different looks on this. You're going to be opportunities for you to collect up here and dominate this quadrant. I'm not a fan of it. There's a reason for it, because if you understand the proper mechanics and how to dominate here, on my backspin, I'm going to be short on this arm because I'm pulling it out. So what I mean by it is I'm taking this arm out, and now he's coming to turtle, and I got to shoot this guy back in. I'm not opposed to it. I like it. But he's got to mechanically make a mistake, because a good player is going to be protecting his draw line, and he's going to be here, and he's not going to have insertion. So you're going to have a problem getting back in on that thing, okay? So I want you to spin to the back quadrant at this point. So you're like this, right? And let's just focus on this kneecap. This kneecap was here from the very beginning. You shouldn't have had this kneecap up yet. There was no reason to. Right? You lost this early. So later on, when you open this up, or I'm making this effort to pick this guy up now, as he's coming to it, go slow, right? I'm dropping this kneecap right at his hip line. As he's coming up, I'm having a focus of using this hand on him to flip my hips right back to this back quadrant, and now start collecting this to take his back on the back quadrant down here, right? So I'm asking you to do both sequences. The first one, you open them up, right? But now you understand what happened, because you're going to be short. If I describe this properly to you, when you throw this hand over, he was protecting this. So one marries with the other. So when you throw that hand to capture that elbow, you're going to be on a short shelf like that. You're not going to be totally well on that. And now you're going to lose him, right? And you were just here. And now you lost him, and he's coming up. I'm dropping this elbow. Okay, I spin off that kneecap, and I make the biggest turn I can with this. So as I take this, because I want to use this leg to flip me back again. So this hand's also going to come into effect also. So as they're coming up, right, they're here. I'm taking the biggest step I can behind me that I can flip this and just transfer really quickly. So don't short this back step leg, because it should end up behind you so that you can flip these kneecaps also. Also, if you want to use this hand, you can. You can use this on a Y wedge, because if you understand, there's a moment that when I flip, I'm not going to be pressing this hip, and he might go on a shoulder roll. So I got to feel the shoulder roll as it goes through, that I can come up here on this top quadrant. So I know that's a little bit complicated and some people might understand what I mean, but when you're here and you landed this and he's coming up and he's like this, he's going to shoulder roll at this point. So I got to be, as he's shoulder rolling, I want to feel this so I transfer to this top quadrant that he doesn't clear me with the leg over the top. Do not do that right now, okay? I'm describing a bigger picture of what I'm trying to do. He, as a high-level player, should have felt a transition point. When I'm flipping the hip line, he should have went on either a Granby roll. They're the same thing. One's from standing, one's from the bottom. They're the same principle. He should have went on that roll. So there's a moment that I got to feel that in case I'm feeling that shoulder duck under. I don't know what I'm looking for visually at this point. I may be down here. I may be super tight. I'll be mirroring the spinal cord. That's really what I wanted to do. I didn't want to have a haircut where I was described with my head's up high. I was mirroring the back of this spine the whole time. So I got to feel if that shoulder goes under. So I'd love to be able to touch that shoulder. I'd also love to be able to use this back hand as you're spinning this thing over the top and Nathan's coming up. I'd love to be able to push on here and make a transfer with this back leg and come right back to this back quadrant. So I'd love to be able to use this hand to explode even further back, potentially, okay? But this hand does have a purpose. It's going to be on him because later on, depending on how he comes up, I may use this hand to open up a clavicle or something further down the line, okay, guys? Let's part up and do this. Let's do it. So I'm here, okay? So I'm going to ask you, you're still here, and he's making no effort. He's making no separation, so why would I force this issue? But I'm going to force it on him. So I'm going to take this hand and put it on here. Because at this point, I don't want him coming this way. I only want him going that way. But I'm going to make him go that way from this shin line. So I'm going to place this, I'm going to stay up for a second. I'm going to place this shin line on your neck, okay? And this is where my shin's going to go. And I'm going to drive this and windshield wiper this foot onto that side. I'll do it lightly, kiddo. Sorry about this. Right? So I'm going to imagine we're here, and I'll show you what my hand positions are in a second. So as I'm driving this kneecap, all I want to do is put my foot here. So as I'm driving his kneecap, this is what happens, right? Because he can't do anything about it. It's just a fact. He just can't. I mean, it's just your neck muscles, okay? And yeah, I know it sucks, dude. I'm sorry. So I'm going to ask you to blade it right here, okay? I'm going to ask you to lightly bring him that way. When he's going to come up, it's the same sequence, right? So I was here. I don't want you coming this way because now you're just doing this. You're just playing like this position. You think that you have some form of a victory on this. So I'm going to take this hand and I'll put it on this side, okay? I'm going to track this elbow. I'm just going to own this arm. So I'm going to base this leg on this neckline. And as I drop it up, I come up and I shelve high to attack this arm. So I do the same sequence. I open up. Just be prepared that you're on the same sequence on this side, that you just made this commitment, that when I release this hand and come up, we'll deal with this if he comes up to turtle. But for now, I'm going to ask you to open this up, make this transfer, and come back again on this. The same transfer again. I'm here, and I lose the arm. And he's coming up. I'm making the same transfer. Back rotation, I'm hunting this back, or I got insertion on the bottom one first. Same sequencing, same sequence. And if he pulls back on you, you're on the same sequence again. This is what I mean by it. Let's say Ethan comes up for me, go that way, right? And I'm here, and I'm trying to open this up. And Ethan realizes, and he pulls his back, because that's what they do. So I let him, keep pulling, sir. Keep pulling, drop, keep pulling, keep pulling. I'm dropping back to the other side. So I'm learning how to capture because the person I just described to you is making no effort to recover. His movements are 6 inches like this. He makes no effort to recover. So when he pulls back, he's not going to recover. He's just going to rotate about 10 inches to the other side. And then when you hunt this, he's going to rotate 10 inches to the other side. And that's all they do. That's all they do. They don't do anything else. They don't try to bring their shin lines in. They don't try to bridge away. Their whole victory in their head is they didn't get submitted. Ugh. I wish I could let Frankie hit you. I wish Frankie put on some big gloves and smash him. It is the silliest thing. It is the silly. I described it in 3 different scenarios. And then why did we all join in the very beginning? We all joined because we wanted to learn how to do self-defense. That's really, and then you fall in love with the art. But in the beginning, you had this thing where you're like, hey man, I want to learn how to defend myself, like BJJ, I like the UFC. That's why you really came in the beginning. So don't ever forget that. You fall in love with the art because you have to realize it's so much more than fighting. But in the beginning, like, let's drill this. We're part of the same team, okay? So get comfortable. You can ask your partner. If you're a little bit more advanced, you got a great partner. When you were here, right, and turn that way, and you're here, and then you're opening this up, they won't go to turtle. They'll just keep pulling back on you. Pull back, right? So I'm just catching on this side. I'm opening them up and just catching them on the other side, right? I'm doing the same thing. I'm trying to pull this thing out, and they won't try to recover. They'll just rip back the other way. Right, perfect. I just catch it on this side. All I'm doing is flaring my knee lines like this. And I'm trying to catch you. And if you want to be nasty on it, we're not going to let go of this face. I'm not going to drop it. I'm just going to drive it down so that you can't come back. That's really how it could play out if you don't want to be nice about it. I don't have to drop this and go to a knee pinch. I can drive this and keep it here so you can't pull back. Okay, so we can take this in a lot of different directions, but I'd ask you not to play that game anymore. I don't care if you get caught. I don't care if you get caught in the guillotine or Doris, but you got to learn. Because if you are getting caught in those things, it's because you don't understand where your hands are. You're opening up those pockets. Like early, how we described the equation very early was, you know, the guy made all these mistakes, right? But a good player is not going to make those mistakes. He's going to learn how to turn with his hands like this, protecting his face, his temples, his vital spots. He's not going to open anything up. He's going to know how to rotate without even using his arms. Okay, so there's different equations, but I painted a really big specific story of what we were trying to accomplish. Okay, guys, let's partner and do this. Let's do it.